So now we're going to continue on with habit five, seeking first to understand empathetic listening, which is the highest of five levels of listening. And so, what are the five levels of listening? Well, first, the first level is ignoring. We pay no attention to the other person or what they're saying. Second is pretend listening. We acknowledge the other person and we act like we're listening, but our attention is really elsewhere. We've probably done this a lot, either at parties or large gatherings, where we're not really focused on what's going on in the moment. Sometimes we don't notice it when we're doing it ourselves, but we always notice it when someone else does it to us. When their eyes keep looking beyond us, sort of like looking for the next person, you pretty quickly realize that the person isn't listening to you. And then we think about how that makes us feel. It's not good. It makes us feel like we're not important. The third is selective listening. We hear some things, we ignore others. A lot of times I think of this like we do with children. We're listening for keywords like blood or hurt or something like that, but we're not really paying attention to all the content. Fourth is attentive listening. So we're actually listening, but we're only listening with our ears. We're not listening for emotion. We're really just looking for content, just more of an information exchange. And then finally, the highest level of listening is empathetic listening, empathic listening. This is where we listen with our ears, our eyes, and our heart, and we're really trying to move below the surface to the feelings and get what issues are really of importance to this other person. To truly understand, we must listen to more than words. Words are weak compared to the richness and complexity of the ideas that we need to express. They're particularly poor in expressing feelings, and yet feelings are often the thing that people most want us to understand. So when we seek to understand, we have to look beyond the surface issues that the words describe to consider how people feel. When people sense that we are trying to understand their feelings as well as their words, they tend to feel safe. Then when they feel safe, we can discuss the issues with the feelings out of the way. The words are clear and have lost their emotional overtones, and we can more easily use them to explore options and possibilities. Empathy is listening with the eyes and the heart, as mentioned before. Feelings rarely show up in words. They are revealed instead by cell facial expressions in the way people carry their body and in other nonverbal cues by listening with our eyes. Unlike words, nonverbal cues are multidimensional and complex, so we can't always understand them logically and rationally. We almost sense them more than understand them, with an extra dimension of complex understanding that the poets call heart. So empathetic listening is listening with the eyes and the heart as well as your ears. We notice nonverbal expressions and we sense other people's feelings. Empathic listening is deep listening, followed by statements of what we understand the other person to be expressing. Empathic listening is a skill, and it's practiced through reflection. Reflections means restating as clearly as possible, but we are understanding by restating our understanding when we put it out. We're restating it so that when we put it out there, we both understand it. Then both of us can look at it and examine it. These statements of understanding don't always have to be verbal. The point is to convey our understanding to the other person. And just as the other person may express feelings more clearly through nonverbal cues and through words, so may we often reflect our understanding of the other person most clearly through nonverbal cues. Empathic listening is particularly important under three conditions. First, when the interaction has a strong emotional component. Second, when we are not sure that we understand. And three, when we are not sure that the other person feels confident that we understand. Under other circumstances, empathic responses can be counterproductive. We don't need to reflect our understanding, nor would it be associated when someone asks us where the restroom is. As example, empathic responses can guide both people to understanding. Sometimes the people that we are listening to may not be totally clear about their feelings and their point of view on the issues. Their interaction with us may therefore clarify things for them as well as for us. Often that clarity comes when they hear us reflect what we're understanding. They may say to themselves, yes, that is what I mean. Almost. I was surprised at hearing their thoughts expressed so clearly. In fact, our goal in reflecting should be to express the other person's point of view better than they can. We're often able to do it because they are so close to it. And it's often so hard for them to separate the different aspects of an issue. Because we're listening from the outside, we may pick up things that they had missed, assumptions they had not clarified, for example, or relationships that they had overlooked. This is the sort of thing that we cannot do when we are defensive or when we are listening to filters of our own experience. Empathic listening allows the other person to explore their feelings at their own pace and direction. The important thing about empathic listening is that it gives others psychological air. It lets them express and explore their feelings without being threatened, without feeling need to defend themselves and fight for survival. This is a reading from Dr. Covey's book. Empathic listening is so powerful because it gives you an accurate data to work with. Instead of projecting your own autobiography and assuming thoughts, feelings, motives, interpretations, you're dealing with the reality inside another person's head and heart. You're listening to understand. You're focused on receiving the deep communication of another human's soul. In addition, empathic listening is the key to making deposits in emotional bank accounts because nothing you do is a deposit unless the other person perceives it as such. You can work your finger to the bone to make a deposit, only to have it turn into a withdrawal when a person regards your efforts as manipulative, self-serving, intimidating, or condescending, because you don't understand what really matters to them. Empathic listening, in and out of itself, is a tremendous deposit in the emotional bank account. It's deeply therapeutic and healing because it gives the person psychological air. If all the air will suddenly suck out of the room you're in right now, what would happen to your interest in this book? You wouldn't care about the book. You wouldn't care about anything except getting air. Survival would be your only motivation. But now that you have air, it doesn't motivate you. This is one of the greatest insights in the field of human motivation. Satisfied needs do not motivate. It's only the unsatisfied need that motivates. Next to physical survival, the greatest need of human being is psychological survival. That to be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. When you listen with empathy to another person, you give that person psychological air. And after that vital need is met, you can then focus on influencing a problem or solving it. The need for psychological air impacts communication in every area of life. The reason we reflect as people, rather than probing and advice, is that we are not in the position to do the exploring. We aren't where the treasure is. The inner terrain is so complex, and we have to leave its exploration to the person who lives there. That's why autobiographical responses are so damaging. They imply that we know the terrain when we don't, or they place the other person on our terrain, and then we manipulate and we dictate. Empathic responses don't push. We reflect aspects of the terrain, but no more than the owner has given us. And yet our reflection may cast light on aspects of the terrain the owner hasn't seen. We are part of the process, but we aren't just an amplifier of signals. We are not in charge of it. It is the sensitivity of empathic listening that lets the exploration proceed. Developing the skill of empathic listening progresses through 5 stages. Empathic listening combines several skills, including capturing feelings from nonverbal cues and phrasing empathic responses clearly and supportively. These skills are practice. People typically learn the skills in 5 stages. Stage 1, mimic the content of the communication. In this stage, we simply repeat what it's said, words only, not feelings. Stage 2, rephrase the content. Now we put their meaning into our own words. This takes more thought than stage 1, but it also creates more awareness. In stage 3, we reflect our feelings and here we look more deeply and begin to capture those feelings. Stage 4, we rephrase the content and we reflect feeling. So now we're doing both stages 2 and 3, and this helps us make sure that we know that not only do we hear the words and their content, but we understand their feelings. The 5th stage is learn not to reflect. The last stage of learning is discern. Discerning when it isn't necessary, and reflection may even get in the way. Next, I'd like you to go to the empathic listening worksheet and think about a situation where you can immediately apply the skill and start to practice and get better at it. Look at what the benefits could be and what happens if you don't look at listening in a different way. When you finish that worksheet, then come back and do the next video.